All right, now we're back. No, I'm recording. So we're gonna continue on with our study of the Mahaparinirvana Sutra on page 94. Or a person might say, Buddha talks about the middle path. All beings possess Buddha nature. As illusion overspreads, they do not know or see. Thus, an expedient is applied to cut the roots of illusion. A person who speaks thus does not commit the four grave offenses. This we should know. Any person who does not speak thus infringes the parajika.
Or a person might say, I have already attained unsurpassed enlightenment. Why? Because I have the Buddha nature. Any person possessing the Buddha nature has assuredly attained unsurpassed enlightenment. Consequently, I attain enlightenment. Then one should know such a person infringes the parajika. Why so? There surely is the Buddha nature, but not yet having practiced the best expedient of the way, the person has not yet seen it. Having not yet seen it, there can be no attaining of unsurpassed enlightenment. O good man, on this account, the teaching of the Buddha is profound in its meaning and difficult to have.
Bodhisattva Kasyapa said to the Buddha, O world-honored one, a king asks, how does a bhiksu get drawn to supramundane dharma? The Buddha said to Kasyapa, a bhiksu may, for profit or food, flatter, state things wrongly, or cheat and say things such as, how might all the world believe that I am truly a real bhiksu, so that I can thereby attain a great profit and fame? Such a bhiksu, because of the darkness of his mind, always thinks and prays, I have not yet in truth arrived at the four attainments of a Sravaka. How might I be able to make the world think that I have gained all of these? How might I be able to make upasakas and upasikas think of me as a sage who has fully perfected all the true virtues? Thus does he think. What is done is all for profit, not for the way. In his goings and comings, in his going out and coming in moving forwards and standing still, he looks peaceful. In his manner of dress and holding his bowl, the deportment is not lost. Alone he sits in a lonely place and looks like an arhat. So people think this is the foremost of bhiksus, fully exerting himself. He practices the way of extinction. He thinks, as a result of this, I will assuredly gain disciples. People will also certainly offer me clothing, food, drink, bedding, and medicine. All females will respect and love me. Any person who acts in this manner acts against the Atari Manusa Dharma.
Also, there is a bhiksu who sits in a lonely place, desiring to build up unsurpassed wonderful dharma. Though no arhat, he intends to have others call him an arhat. A lovable bhiksu, a good bhiksu, and a quiet bhiksu. He thus effectively makes innumerable people arrive at faith. Hence, I let all the innumerable bhiksus befriend him like a relative. Through this, I can teach and make the precept-breaking bhiksus and upasakas and upasikas uphold the precepts. In consequence, wonderful dharma will be established. The unsurpassed meaning of the great principle of the Tathagata will shine forth, and Vaipulya Mahayana teaching will be revered. Thus, emancipating all innumerable beings so that they will come to know the light or heavy significations of the sutras and Vinayas which the Tathagata has delivered.
Also, a person might say, I now have the Buddha nature. There is a sutra which is called the storehouse of the Tathagata. In that sutra, I shall surely attain the Buddhist teaching and cut out innumerable billion bonds of illusion. I shall speak to innumerable upasakas. You all have the Buddha nature. You and I sit together on the path of the Tathagata and will attain unsurpassed enlightenment and do away with all the innumerable bonds of illusion. One like this does not violate the Attar Iman Usa Dhamma. He is a bodhisattva.
One who commits Jaskirta will fall into hell for a period of 8 million years of the days of Prayastrimsa heaven, and he will have to undergo punishment for the sins he has committed. How much worse will it be when he transgresses the Stulataya? Thus does a person say, should there be any bhiksu among those of the Mahahana gathered here who have violated the Stulataya such as not to be befriended?
What are the Thulatya of the Mahayana Sutras? For example, a rich man erects a Buddhist temple and adorns it with various garlands and offers this to the Buddha. There is a bhiksu who, on seeing the thread which passes through the garland, takes it without asking. This is Thulatya. Whether knowingly or not, he violates in this manner. If, with a greedy mind, one causes damage to a Buddhist stupa, this is Thulatya. One should not come near a person who acts in this way, or a king or minister on seeing that a stupa is old and damaged and intending to have it repaired makes offerings to the Sharira and finds in it a rare gem, which he gives to a bhiksu. On gaining the gem, the bhiksu uses it as he wills. Such a bhiksu is one who is defiled, and one who will most possibly call forth quarrels. No good upasaka should approach such a bhiksu, make offerings, or pay respect to him. Such a bhiksu is termed rootless. Such a bhiksu is also termed two-rooted. Some, or perhaps more accurately, oh no, that's all in. I'm sorry, no, brackets. Such a bhiksu is also termed two-rooted, or one in whom the root is indefinable. By indefinably rooted is meant the case of a person whose body becomes that of a female when the desire to be female arises, and becomes that of a male when the desire to be male arises. Any such bhiksu is evil-rooted. He is neither female nor male, neither a bhiksu nor a layperson. One must not come near such a bhiksu, or make offerings to him, or pay him respect. One who abides in the Buddhist teachings and the law of a bhiksu should have a sympathizing mind, protect and bring up beings. Even to an ant, one must give the mind of fearlessness. This is Shramana's law. One segregates oneself from drinks and incense. This is the law of the Shramana. One must not tell lies, nor should one think of lying. This is the law of Shramana. One does not cause a greedy mind to raise its head. The same applies even in dreams. This is the law of Shramana.
Bodhisattva Kasyapa said to the Buddha, O world-honored one, if a bhikksu becomes a captive of carnal lust in a dream, does this violate Dharma or not? The Buddha said, no. One should call up the thought of an evil smell against carnal desire. If no pure mind ever raises its head, segregate the mind from the worry and love of the female. If in a dream one becomes captive to carnal lust, repent for the act when awake. One should abide in the thought of the bhikksu who, when going begging on his alms round, receiving offerings, eats the flesh of his own son in the days of a famine. If carnal desire asserts itself, quickly discard such a thought. All such is the teaching of the Buddha's sutras in Vinaya. One following what Mara says is the kindred of Mara. One who follows what the Buddha says is a bodhisattva.
Or a person might say, stand on one leg, remain silent, and say nothing. Throw yourself into deep water or into fire, or jump from a high precipice, not fearing the steepness. Take poison, fast, lie down on ashes, bind your legs, kill beings, and tell fortunes by directions and the way a person takes. Or a person might say, the Tathagata allows Kandalas, ruthless persons, hermaphrodites, indefinables, and decrepit, to become ordained and accomplish the way. Such are the words of Mara. Or a person might say, the Buddha has already permitted us to consume the 5 tastes of milk from the cow, oil and honey, except silken clothing and leather footwear, etc. Or a person might say, the Buddha has already permitted the putting on of the Maharanga, also the storing of all kinds of seeds. But all grass and trees have life. The Buddha has, having spoken thus, enters nirvana. Should any sutra and Vinaya say thus, know that such is what Mara says. I also do not permit one leg to be held up for Dharma. All such postures as walking, standing, sitting, and reclining are permitted. Also, someone might say, take poison, fast, burn the body with fire, bind your hands and feet, kill people, divine directions and ways, make leather footgear decorated with white horseshoe shell and ivory. The Buddha has permitted the storing up of seeds. Grass and plants have life. He has permitted the putting on of the Maharanga. If a person says that the world-honored one has said this, such a person is a kindred of the Tristikas. Any person such as this is not my disciple. I have only permitted the 5 tastes of the cow, oil, honey, and also silken cloth. I say that the 4 great elements do not have life. Should any sutra or Vinaya say thus, such is what the Buddha has said. Any person who acts in accordance with the word of the Buddha is, one should know, my disciple. Any person who does not follow the word of the Buddha is a kindred of Mara. Any person who acts in accordance with the Buddha's sutras and Vinaya is, one should know, a great bodhisattva. O good man, I now extensively, for your sake, thus spoken about the difference between what Mara says and what the Buddha says.
Kasyapa said to the Buddha, O world-honored one, I have now come to know the difference between the word of Mara and that of the Buddha. In consequence, I shall be able to fathom the depths of the Buddhist teaching.
Then the Buddha praised Kasyapa and said, well said, well said. O good man, you have now clearly gained the meaning. You are clever and wise.
The Buddha also said to Kasyapa, noble son, it is not appropriate to term suffering as the noble truth. Why is that? If one were to term suffering the noble truth of suffering, then cattle, sheep, donkeys, horses, and the denizens of hell would also have the noble truth. Noble son, whoever thinks that the extremely profound domain, sphere, realm of the Tathagata, the eternal, untransforming Dharmakaya, is a body nourished by food, such a person does not know of the virtues and power which the Tathagata possesses. This is suffering. Why so? Due to ignorance, a person views Dharma as non-Dharma and non-Dharma as Dharma. Know that this person will fall into the unfortunate realms and repeat birth and death. This will increase the bonds of illusion and worry will grow. If he comes to know that the Tathagata is eternal, one with whom there comes about no change, or if he hears the word eternal, he will obtain birth in heaven. And on gaining emancipation, he will actually see that the Tathagata is eternal and unchanging. When this is well seen, he will say, I heard about this in the past. Now that I am emancipated, I know this. As I was ignorant regarding the ultimate, I have been repeating birth and death to no end. Today I am enlightened as regards to knowledge. If knowledge reaches this stage, this is truly practicing suffering. There is much to profit from. One may well practice this, but if one does not know things to be thus, no profit will result. This is what is called knowing suffering. This is the noble truth of suffering. If one does not practice thus, this is suffering and not the noble truth of suffering.
We say truth of the cause of suffering. A person does not truly know the wonderful Dharma and receives what is impure. This is the case of menials. Non-Dharma is called wonderful Dharma. A person annuls what is right and won't allow it to live. On account of this, that person does not know Dharmata. Not knowing this, he repeats birth and death and suffers greatly. He does not get born in heaven and gain right emancipation. If a person has deep wisdom and does not transgress against wonderful Dharma, he will, in consequence, be born in heaven and attain right emancipation. If a person does not know where suffering arises and says that there cannot be any wonderful Dharma or what is eternal, and that all turns to nothingness, that person, in consequence, will repeat transmigration for innumerable kalpas to come, suffering all kinds of sorrow. If a person says that Dharma is eternal and that there is no change, this is knowing the cause. And this is the noble truth of the cause of suffering. If one does not so practice, this is the cause of suffering and not the noble truth of the cause.
We say truth of the extinction of suffering. If a person practices many things in the way of nothingness, this is non-good. Why so? Because this annuls all laws and breaks the true storehouse of the Tathagata. Any practice of this category is the practicing of nothingness. One who practices the extinction of suffering acts against what all other tikas do. If the practice of nothingness is the truth of extinction, there are Tartikas who also practice the teaching of nothingness. We must say that they too possess the truth of extinction. A person says, there is the Tathagata Garbha. One cannot see this. But if one does away with all illusions, one may indeed enter. It is thus. By the raising of such a mind, one gains freedom in all things. If a person practices the way of the hidden storehouse, selflessness and emptiness, such a person repeats birth and death for innumerable ages to come, and suffers from sorrow. A person who does not do such practices may certainly, even though he might have, illusion, soon do away with it. Why so? Because he well knows the undisclosed storehouse of the Tathagata. This is the noble truth of the extinction of suffering. Any person who practices extinction in such a way is my disciple. A person not practicing the way thus is one who practices emptiness. This is not the noble truth of extinction.
A person who does not do such practices may certainly, even though he might have illusion, soon do away with it. We say, noble truth of the way. This is none but the treasures of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and right emancipation. All people say with an upside down mind, there is no Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, or right emancipation. Birth and death are like phantoms. They hold such views. As a result, they repeat birth and death through the three worlds, suffering there greatly for a long time to come. If a person awakens and comes to see that the Tathagata is eternal, that no change comes to him, and that the same applies to Dharma, Sangha, and emancipation, by this one thought, the person obtains unmolested freedom for innumerable ages to come, and he may enjoy it as he wills. Why? Because once in the past, due to the four inversions, I took non-dharma as dharma and was met by innumerable karmic consequences. When I had made away with such a view, I attained true awakening to Buddhahood. This is the noble truth of the way. Any person who says that the three treasures are non-eternal and holds this view of life, then is a false way of practice. Wait, hold on. I think I read that wrong. Any person who says that the three treasures are non-eternal and holds this view of life, then this is a false way of practice and is not the noble truth of the way. If a person practices the way thus and has it as eternal, such a person is my disciple. If he abides in the true view of life and practices the teaching of the Four Noble Truths. So we just went through the Four Noble Truths, right? We have the Noble Truth of Suffering. So this is my suffering understanding where your suffering comes from. The truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of extinction of suffering, and the way. So that aligns with what we know as this is my suffering, this is the cause of my suffering, this is the cessation of my suffering, or this is the path to the cessation of my suffering, and this is the cessation of my suffering. So it's about understanding the true cause, the true root of suffering, understanding that suffering can only arise with thoughts, right? So understanding the true nature of suffering. And so he says, if if you don't see it as the thought is causing your suffering, then it is just suffering. It is not the noble truth of suffering. And same with the cause of suffering. It is not the noble truth of suffering if you don't see it as in this light of the practice. Right?
So this is like you can suffer just to suffer, but it's not the noble truth of suffering until you understand that it's coming from yourself and not externals.
Right.
Okay. And the cause being your thoughts, not externals. Or
Right.
how would you explain the cause of suffering?
So yeah, understanding that suffering, your own suffering, is caused by yourself. Um, so if we understand that, our feelings and our perception of things arise because of a thought that we've allowed to arise. Like if I don't know, if take some for example, like the lint on the carpet. If I think about it and it causes me to suffer because there's lint on the carpet and I should have vacuumed or it should have been vacuumed, and that causes me suffering because it should have been vacuumed. I need to understand that vacuuming is not going to cause my suffering to cease. It's the thinking about the lint on the carpet that needs to cease. And then you can either vacuum it or not. So
Yeah. Makes sense. You
Bodhisattva Kasyapa said to the Buddha, O world honored one, I now for the first time know and practice the great depths of the Four Noble Truths. Now, do you want to go into more detail here, or
yeah, it might be good.
okay? Is there a particular piece that you want to?
So I got the main titles. We got what is actually suffering, what is the cause of suffering. Then we have how we go about getting rid of your suffering, and then now it's gone.
Yeah.
And so, what does it say about how to get rid of it? That's the practice, our meditative and our Buddhist practice.
Yeah. So, person practices many things, and the way of nothingness, this is non-good. Why so? Because this annuls all laws and breaks the true storehouse of the Tathagata.
So there, right there, I think that line summed it up well. A person says there's the Tathagata Garbha, the pristine mind. So essentially, your pristine mind, which is hidden by illusion, and if you clean up your mind using your Buddhist practice, and you'll actually be able to see your pristine mind, your ability to have supreme Bodhi by getting rid of your delusions and your unproductive, erroneous thoughts, and the way we talk about it in our practice.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then once those are removed, you're able to experience supreme Bodhi. You're there, and that is what will erode that suffering.
Yeah, and you can see even these positive things like selflessness and emptiness. Those are also not the way to cease suffering. So it's neither good nor bad. We're not replacing it with positive things.
It's not like
We're not
saying if I'm nice, then my suffering will stop, or if I'm quote unquote good, my suffering will stop. There's a truly productive way to view this.
Yeah, it's like you can't just say, I know this is bad, so I'm going to do something good
Yeah.
in order to cease the suffering. That's not how it works.
Okay.
And then the noble truth of the way. Yeah, but the treasures of Buddha, Dharma, and right emancipation. And then he talks about upside down mind, inverted views, right? Saying there is no Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, right emancipation. Yeah, so you can see how the message I get from this is it's not about denying existence. It's not about externals. It's when we say, if for this example, there is no Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, or right emancipation. If we say that literally, that would be nihilistic. That would be denying existence. When we say that in the practice, there is no, like in the Heart Sutra, there is no eyes, ears, nose, that sort of thing. We're talking about our thoughts, not the existence. So taking this and really reflecting on how to apply it internally as opposed to externally, right? And when we're reading this, we're reading this for see if we can spot that in our own minds, and if we are practicing correctly. If I'm thinking about that there is no Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, right emancipation, their existence is not in question, but it's my thoughts. Did you want to go into it anymore? Are there any?
No, I'm good.
Okay. The Buddha said to Kasyapa, we speak of the four inversions. Inversion is spoken of when we entertain the idea of suffering where there is no suffering. Non-suffering is the Tathagata. The idea of suffering arises when a person thinks that all Tathagatas are non-eternal and that they change. And you can see that because if we know the Tathagata, right, and the Tathagata is explained to us as being able to experience, well, not experience, it's being able to have discerning nature and choosing not to make a thought arise. So we still have our discerning nature, we can still see and sense, and we still have the ability to sense the world, but we're we're choosing to stay in a state of the state of supreme Bodhi, the supreme Bodhi where we're choosing not to have a thought arise. And in so doing, you know, that still having those senses open is experiencing the Tathagata. So the Tathagata is experiencing the world, moving through the world in supreme Bodhi, moving through the world in a way where we still have sensory contact without the arising of a thought. So there is no form, there is no feeling, emotions don't arise, right? Because those emotions arise from thoughts. So when we're talking about non-suffering is the Tathagata. Wait, hold on. Version is spoken of when we entertain the idea of suffering where there is no suffering. Non-suffering is the Tathagata. The idea of suffering arises when a person thinks that all Tathagatas are non-eternal and that they change. Right, so it would be looking at externals and saying, you know, this carpet's changed. I don't like it anymore. Instead of saying, my thoughts about the carpet changed, and I don't like it because there's lint on it or whatever. You know, it's misidentifying.
Or there's a trauma or something associated with it now.
Right.
That's where you get people who say, like, they have to change their house or their car or their clothes or whatever when they have a bad experience with those things.
Yep. And so that's what we mean by entertaining the idea of suffering where there is no suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of suffering arises when a person thinks that all Tathagatas are non-eternal and that they change. If a person says that the Tathagata changes, this is suffering and constitutes a great sin. If a person says that the Tathagata relinquishes this body of suffering and enters nirvana, and that this is like fuel being all burned up, as a result of which the fire dies out, this is having the idea of suffering vis-a-vis non-suffering. Wait. Result of which the fire dies out. Suffering. This is an inversion. A person might say, saying that the Tathagata is eternal is a self-centered view. From this self-centered view arise innumerable sins. Thus, one should say that the Tathagata is not eternal, and by this I shall gain bliss. Oh, because if the Tathagata relinquishes the body and is burned up, used up, now it's no longer accessible, no longer there.
Oh, essentially like
he's gone. He left with you.
Oh.
You know, that's an inverted view.
That the Tathagata has done that? That the Tathagata is like, it ran out, you're out of
Yeah, you're out. Yeah. I think that's what I'm getting from this. So that's an inverted view. Saying that the Tathagata is eternal is a self-centered view, is inverted. One should say that the Tathagata is non-eternal, and by this I shall gain bliss, right? Non-eternal Tathagata is something that possibly could be attained, something that could die. It's gone now, it's used up.
Okay, yeah.
The Tathagatas being non-eternal would entail suffering. If suffering, how could one expect? If suffering, how could one expect bliss therein? When the idea of bliss occurs, we say inversion. This is said because the thought of suffering arises in bliss, because it's you're mistaking your well-being for good feeling.
Happy, good feeling, joy, ecstasy.
Yeah, you're getting your well-being from the bliss, right?
I feel happy and blissful, so therefore I must be doing it right.
And then, of course, we know that when one arises, so does the opposite.
Yeah.
The Tathagata's being eternal is bliss. If I say that the Tathagata is eternal, how can I enter nirvana? If I say that the Tathagata is non-suffering, how could I cast away my body and enter nirvana? When a person has thought of suffering in bliss, we say that this is an inversion. This is the first inversion. A person has thought of suffering in bliss.
That if you're in bliss, but you can still think of suffering, and this is an aversion. Is that you're still suffering even though you're blissful? Or is that like I have the thoughts, like I can comprehend suffering while I'm being blissful?
Well, I think that that's a good question, because there are like blissful states that the practice can cause, because the whole effort is to relax the grip on your mind that these clingings have, right? To undo the knots. And so naturally you're gonna experience bliss in the practice.
Yeah.
And so I think that that something I'm taking this to mean, if you're in bliss and you're still having thoughts arise that are not productive, or you're still saying, okay, this bliss must be the origin or rising of my well-being, then that is not bliss that comes from practicing correctly.
So being blissful, but being unproductively blissful would be an inversion, because through the practice, it's not about being super happy, but it's also not about being super sad. You're supposed to be boundless, to be happy, sad, or in the middle.
And notice that, like, those feelings of bliss, happy, sad, those all come from thoughts. So once you start feeling that feeling, like, there's already been the foundation of the thought that caused the feeling.
Yeah.
They don't just come from nowhere.
They can just happen. You're not all of a sudden happy out of nowhere.
Yeah. So I think that this is pointing to mistaking the origin of arising of your well-being for bliss is the inversion.
Which would make sense.
Yeah. But because you're saying, because up there it says, basically, if I understand the Tathagata, then I shall gain bliss. And that's mistaking the whole point of the practice. The practice isn't for us to be blissful. It isn't for us to be happy.
Yeah.
It's for us to be resilient.
Peaceful. But then once you name it, once you describe it, that dualism appears again.
Yeah, then you're mistaking your well-being.
The idea of the eternal vis-a-vis the non-eternal, and the idea of the non-eternal vis-a-vis the eternal are inversions. The non-eternal is the non-practicing of the void. When one does not practice the void, life is shortened. If one says not practicing the void and quietude, one attains eternal life, this is an inversion. This is the second inversion.
So using duality, right? So the idea of understanding what the eternal is by using the non-eternal, understanding what supreme Bodhi is by understanding what I don't know, anything else is pretty much non-supreme Bodhi. So it's like saying I'm going to understand supreme Bodhi by trying to chase down the root of this thought instead of just practicing supreme Bodhi. So it's trying to like idea of the eternal vis-a-vis. So when I see vis-a-vis, I'm thinking like via, like using the eternal, using the non-eternal to understand the eternal, right? And the idea of the non-eternal vis-a-vis the eternal. You're using the non-eternal to understand the eternal.
Okay. So non-eternal is the non-practicing of the void.
So
Oneness.
the non-eternal is clinging to our perception of the world. It's saying, I need it to be a certain way, would be non-eternal. Because the Tathagata is eternal. And the Tathagata can only be experienced through Supreme Bodhi.
Right.
So non-eternal is everything else. So it's kind of like, here's how I'm reading it. It's like, if you are taking the teaching and only hearing the words, you're only saying the words, you're only reciting things, you're not actually practicing, you're
not feeling it.
You're not working on experiencing the practice.
Experiencing it.
You're only trying to define it. Like, it's kind of like the question that Ananda had in the Strong Sutra, where is my mind? It's like, dude, that's not the point of the practice. We're not
trying
here
to explain it and analyze it instead of just living it.
Yeah, instead of trying to experience it, trying to apply it, you're still thinking about it externally. I mean, believe it or not, asking the question, where's my mind?
Yeah.
Is technically still relying on externals.
You're looking for answers outside of yourself.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of this can seem like we're dancing around the topic, because once you try to explain it, you're no longer explaining it.
Yeah, I mean, even just saying Supreme Bodhi has an arising, and that's not Supreme Bodhi anymore. So we have to work with language, and we have to work with externals in order to point to what the practice is. There's no way around that, because that's how we communicate with each other.
Yeah.
But just understanding that, like, the purpose of us being together, ironically, isn't for anyone to really learn anything. It isn't for me to say, Robert learned this today, or anyone on the recording learned this today.
Yeah.
We're doing this for the good of humanity today, because that would be reliance on externals. That would be
I would have to learn something in order for what you're saying to be true.
Right.
Or to mean something or to matter.
Right. And so that's where you get this, why don't you care? You know, no one listens to me. Why am I doing this?
Or look at me, I learned all these things in my Sunday services, or I'm doing so good because I attended every service and I listened to every meeting. And
now, it is important to put in the effort to understand.
Yeah.
But then once we have the understanding, it's not like a badge. And then, so it's a process.
Yeah.
it's a process. I don't think that any emotion or feeling is necessarily inherently good or bad.
Exactly.
It's not about denying the existence of feelings. It's about just like understanding where they come from and understanding how to skillfully resolve them.
And that's the boundless part of all this, is that you're not saying that it's bad to feel happy or sad, but that feel free to feel happy or sad.
Mm-hmm.
Just put it on your terms, not delusional terms. You can choose to be happy about that thing you're happy about,
Mm-hmm.
but not be trapped by it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then this also comes to mind with this paragraph is needing things to be a certain way. I mean, the idea of experiencing the eternal, experiencing Supreme Bodhi via an external. So needing it to be quiet, needing there to be nice meditative music, needing a cushion, needing to be warm, needing to be cold, needing to be comfortable. Those are all inversions.
Yeah. Because if you make like meditation conditional, that means you're saying that you can't do it in your everyday life. It's not a part of you. It's a very specific conditional thing. Instead of instead of your practice being a part of you, your practice is just something that you do.
Yeah, it's a habit routine instead of a
Yeah. It becomes like a job. It's like, I'm a Buddhist in name and function, but you're not experiencing the point of the practice.
Yeah.
Yep. The thought of self regarding non-self, and the thought of non-self regarding self are inversions. The people of the world say that there is self, and within Buddhism too, we say that there is self. The people of the world say that there is self, but there is no Buddha nature. This is having the idea of self in non-self. This is an inversion. The self spoken of in Buddhism is the Buddha nature. The people of the world say that there is no self in Buddhism, that this is the idea of the non-self in the self. It is definite that there is no self in the Buddhist teaching. That is why the Tathagata tells his disciples to practice selflessness. If such is said, this is an inversion. This is a third inversion.
Yeah. So very, very similar. I mean, the idea of self is just thoughts as well. I think that it's really easy to overcomplicate what is self and what is non-self. It all just still comes down to thoughts. I mean, my experience of the self is the rigidity that comes with things have to be a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
The identification with the things I like or who I think I am or the way that I think things should be. Those are all
Reflections of the self.
reflections of the self. So also, I mean, the self can also arise in I am practicing, I am sitting. It can arise in that mindfulness of just being aware of the thoughts that arise without being aware of the thoughts that dissipate. Can also be self. So it's the same inversion. It's all still just working with thoughts. So
then what would the non-self be? Everything else?
I would experience, I would say that in my experience, the non-self is a more of a denial. It's it's like trying to change externals. It's like I'm going to deny that I have a self. I'm a non-self. So it's like I don't exist. I don't have opinions. And in the same way, you still have that self. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that have more esoteric take on this. What is the self and what is the non-self? I think ultimately both just still come down to thoughts.
Okay.
Because if you have a non-self, you have a thought. If you have a self, you have a thought. But if you have neither,
Okay. Okay.
that is not me. I don't, I don't know.
That could almost be the self too. If you say, I don't like that, I'm not associated with that, that is still a self because it's still coming from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would the non-self be all those things that you don't really have it's the stuff that you don't recognize as good or bad. It's everything else that's you don't deny it, but you also don't accept it. It's just blank. I don't know.
Well, this is an interesting question. Like thinking about thoughts in terms of being self or non-self. If they're tied to your identity, then they're self, and if they're not tied to your identity, they're non-self. Is that kind of what you're saying?
But there's no active I'm not actively saying that's not me and that's me. This non-self would be the concept of everything else that's just kind of mundane that you don't have an opinion on. It's just kind of there. But once you acknowledge it, now it becomes part of the self.
No, because if you don't have any arisings about things, that's not non-self either.
Okay.
So in Supreme Bodhi, neither exists.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I take it as the two extremes. I take it as this is who I am. This is my existence. And then the non-self would be the extreme, the denial of existence, the denial of I am an individual.
Okay.
And in both, I mean, they're extremes. They're not.
Yeah, neither one of them is skillful.
And I think that's one of the hardest hurdles to get over is that, I am practicing. I am in Supreme Bodhi.
I am not in Supreme Bodhi. I am not practicing.
Right.
Okay.
And as soon as you have that narrative thought, you're not, it's a thought.
Yeah.
Just like any other thought. It's easy to overcomplicate it. It's all just thoughts.
Yeah.
The non-pure and the pure, and the pure in the non-pure are inversions. The pure relates to the eternal of the Tathagata. It is not a food-supported body, not a body of illusion. It is not a carnal body, not a body made up of sinews and bones. If one says that the Tathagata is non-eternal, a food-supported body bound together by sinews and bones, and that Dharma, Sangha, and emancipation die out, this is an inversion. We say that the idea of the non-pure in the pure is an inversion. A person might say that there is not a whit of what is non-pure in his mind. There is not a single thing that is not pure. He gets into a place which is pure, and that as the person practices the meditation of the non-pure, which is the Tathagata spoke out about, Sorry, the cadence of the sentence is really confusing me. Whatever was said above must be false. Let me reread that. A person might say that there is not a whit of what is non-pure in his mind, that there is not a single thing that is not pure. He gets into a place which is pure, and that as the person practices the meditation of the non-pure, which is, or no, non-pure, which the Tathagata spoke about, whatever was said above must be false. If a person speaks thus, this is inversion. This is the fourth inversion. Okay, so a person says that there is not anything non-pure in his mind.
Okay. There's nothing non-pure in his head.
Yeah. That there is not a single thing that is not pure. He
Okay.
gets into a place which is pure.
Okay.
And that this person practices the meditation of the non-pure, which the Tathagata spoke about.
And that as the person practices the meditation of the non-pure, which the Tathagata spoke about, whatever was said above must be false. So if he's practicing the meditation of the non-pure, then he must actually have non-pure in his head, even if he says he doesn't.
Well, he says that there isn't anything non-pure.
Right. He has nothing unpure in his head.
And so by saying I have nothing impure in my head. So because again, purity in the Buddhist context, especially when relating to the Tathagata, is relating to what's called the Tathagata store. Right? Yeah, the Tathagata store is purity. And that purity is again being able to have the ability to sense the
Discerning nature.
Discerning nature, right? But not discerning. Being able to have sensory contact with the carpet without having carpet arrive.
Okay.
That is purity in the Buddhist context with the Tathagata store. So like if a person says that there isn't any non-pure in his mind, that there is not a single thing that is not pure, which is not necessarily wrong, because if you're talking about purity in terms of the Tathagata and what the Tathagata teaches as purity, there isn't anything that is non-pure because everything is pure until a thought arises, and the
make
thought,
it non-pure.
The thought arising is the defilement. He gets into a place which is pure, and that as the person practices the meditation of the non-pure, which the Tathagata spoke about, whatever was said above must be false. If a person speaks thus, this is an inversion. Okay, so I'm thinking that it's whatever was said above must be false. So if he meditates, if he practices the meditation of the non-pure, then what he said, that there is not a whit of non-pure in his mind, must be false, and that is an inversion. So I think it has to do with time. I think it has to do with the idea that we can say, like, because I'm having a thought about the carpet, my experience of the purity of the carpet earlier wasn't true. And I think it has to do with the idea that we shouldn't be able to fall in and out of enlightenment. Once our mind is pure, it should no longer be able to be not pure. Because it would be contradictory. I think it has to do with contradictory.
Because if your mind becomes pure, how could it become unpure?
All right. And so I think the inversion is making it conditional, making it so like saying since it is pure, it can never be not pure, which is not true. So that's what I mean by time is relating the or arguing the truth of a previous experience based on your current experience. So if you experience true supreme Bodhi and then you struggled, that doesn't mean you didn't experience supreme Bodhi. That doesn't mean that you're practicing incorrectly.
Gotcha.
I think that's the inversion he's talking about. Yeah, usually inversions are just quite literally seeing things flipped around. So seeing it would be like saying I have no arisings of the carpet, and that's not pure. It'd be like literally mistaking it one for the other.
Okay.
Bodhisattva Kasyapa said to the Buddha, O world honored one, I have now for the first time gained the right view. O world honored one, until now all of us were those who abided in wrong thought. And I think this is a good place to stop. So I'm gonna save this and we can move on to our Dhamma farming.